Hi friends, my name is Akil Ahmed, and in this particular video tutorial we will talk about the not null constants in SQL Server. So the agenda of today's video tutorial is what is a not null constants in SQL Server and how to add the not null constants. So before we dive in, let's first understand what is a not null constants. So in SQL Server, a not null constants is a rule that specifies that a column must contain a value. So this means that the column cannot be null. So let's try to understand the not null constants in SQL Server with a demo. So let's jump to the demo. I have the SQL Server 2019 instance, and here I have written the create table statement for the email table, and it contains few columns like ID, first name, last name, and the email column. So right now all the columns are of type null. So let me first create the email table here. So the table has been created, and if I refresh the table, so the table got created in the school database. So if I refresh the table here, so you can see an email table here, okay, and if I expand the column, so you can see all the available columns here. So we will concentrate on the email column. So right now the email column is of type null, so it means that when we will try to insert the data into the email table and into the email column, so the email column, it can have the data or it can be null as of now, okay. So let's try to insert one record into the email table. So I can write the insert query like insert into table name, and then I can probably provide the column names here. So the ID is of type integer and its identity type, so it doesn't need any input from our side, but we need to provide the names for the rest of the columns. So another column is the first name, then the second column is the last name, and the third column is the email. So I have provided the column names here, and now I can provide the values as well. So for example, I can provide a value like Abhishek, and the last name I can provide maybe Kumar, and then the email I need to provide here. So for example, if I provide the email like abhishek@gmail.com, okay, and if I execute this query, so this should work, okay. So now if I will try to select the data from the email table, so I can write the query select star from email, and then I can execute the query. So you can see that the data got inserted correctly here, okay. So now suppose if I do not want to provide a value for the email column, so I can just leave this column as it is, and maybe I can provide a null value as well, okay. So let's try to insert another record into this particular table. So suppose if I provide my name Akil Ahmed, and then maybe I do not want to provide a value for the email, so I can just remove the email from the list of columns, and I can just remove the email value from here as well. So I just want to insert the value for the first name and the last name, okay. So ID value will be inserted automatically, and I'm providing the value for the first name and last name, and I'm just ignoring the email column. So if I execute this query, then this value should also be get inserted, but for the email column the value will be null, okay. So now if I will reselect the data from the email table, then you can see that a new record got inserted here, but the email value is null, okay. Now suppose if you do not want to have the email value as null, and if you always want that the user should always insert a value for the email column, then we can just set the email column as not null, okay. So if you will set the email column as not null, then every time when the user will insert the data, they should need to provide the value explicitly for the email column, until unless you set a default value for the email, okay. So initially we will set the email column as not null, and then we'll see what change will happen to this particular insert query, okay. So right now the email column is of type null, and you can see here as well, and if I refresh the columns, so the email column is of type null. So now there are two ways to add the not null constants to a column. So if you are creating a table, then it's pretty straightforward. Like if you are creating a fresh table, so suppose let me just drop this table, drop table email, and now suppose if I want to recreate a new table, so now instead of this value as null, I can put a value as not null, okay. So now if I drop this table and if I recreate this table, so the email column will be not null right now. So if I refresh the columns here, so now you can see that email column is of not null type right now, okay. So this was the method to add the not null constants to a column while creating the table. Now suppose if your table already exists and you want to add the not null constant, then how you can do that, okay. So let me just drop the table again, and let me just remove the not null constants from here, and if I refresh the column, so now again the email column is of type null. And now let me add the not null constants using the alter table query. So I can write the query as alter table email alter column email varchar 50 not null. Okay, so this is the query to add a not null constants to a table. So if I execute this one, so now you can see that the not null constants have been added to the email column. So if I refresh the columns, then you will see a not null constant for the email column. So this is working fine. So now our table contains the not null constants on the email column. So now suppose if I will try to insert a data again to the email table, and if I don't provide the value for the email column which is of type varchar not null, then this insert query will fail. Okay, so let me try to execute this one. So now you can see that cannot insert the value null into column email, and column does not allow nulls. So now while inserting the data to the email table, you need to provide a value for the email column because it does not allow the null values now. Okay, so now there is one more option, that in case if you do not want to provide the value while inserting the data, but you want to have some default value for that particular column, then you can just set a default value, so that initially you can set some default value and later you can update the actual value. Okay, so the statement to add a default value, suppose I want to add a default value as test@gmail.com. so how I can do that? So we need to write a query like alter table email add constant, and then the constant's name, like I want to add the default constant, so I can write df underscore email, and the constant will be of type default. And now we need to give the value for the default constant, so I want to give the value as test@gmail.com for, and the column name, so I want to add the constant for the email column. So this query we need to execute to add a default constant for the email column. So if I execute this query, so the query ran fine, and if you expand the constants, then you can see a default constants here df underscore email that I just created, this one. Okay, and now if I will execute this query, then the query will be executed successfully. So even I did not provided a value for the email column, but still the query got ran fine, because this default constant df underscore email that got executed, and a value test@gmail.com should have been inserted for the email column. So if I execute this query and if I select the data from the email table, then you can see a record here, and the default value is the test@gmail.com. Okay, and suppose if you want to put a value as blanks, then what you can do, you can just remove this default constants. Okay, so how you can remove the default constants? So you can write like alter table email drop constant and the constant name. So the constant name is the df underscore email. So you can execute this query and the constant will be deleted. So if I refresh this one, so now you can see that the constants have been deleted from here. Okay, and if you want to, for example, add a blank value instead of the actual value, then you can just remove this value from here. So let me just copy this one and paste it here, and then remove this test value, and I want to add the blank value instead of the actual value like test@gmail.com. So if I execute this one, so a constant should be added again. I can refresh this one and I can see constants here df underscore email, and right now I got just one record. So suppose if I insert another entry into this table like Ahmad Osama, so if I execute this query, then a row has been inserted, and if I execute this query select star from email, then you can see another record, and now instead of the test@gmail.com I got the blank value here. So this is the default value for the email. So you can add multiple constants to a SQL Server table if you do not want to provide the value while inserting the data to that particular table. So that's how the not null constants are used for, and I will share this script with you so that maybe if you want to test it, then you can test it in your environment as well. So I think that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you like the video then please click the like button. Do subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and click on all so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much.